What's up, guys? It's Jim with OPTCG, bringing you guys another weekly locals video this week. And this week, if you did not see who won the poll, it is none other than Monkey D. Dragon himself. A very, very fun mono red leader, and actually our 5th out of 6 new OP07 leaders that we have played on the channel now in our locals videos. The only one we have not played being a Black Lucci. However, I knew he was never going to win a poll at this point, so just took him off the poll entirely. But Dragon was actually a very interesting experience. I myself do not really play any Dragon whatsoever, so because of that, I actually have a buddy who plays Dragon a bit and goes to the locals now and again, and I asked him if he could play Dragon for the video, as you know, he could do a lot better job than I can, and you know, really show what this deck can do. Because I don't actually think this deck is, you know, the worst deck ever. It can definitely get some insane turns and some like disgusting curves that pretty much every deck in the game has a hard time dealing with. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get right into the deck list, starting off with, I think, in my opinion, the coolest card that this deck can run. And that is going to be 2-cost Luffy from OP01. So this card is very cool because it is a card introduced in OP01 as an SR. You know, SRs are usually supposed to be strong, except for nobody played this card even back in OP01, right? Which kind of sucked for it, but Dragon has given this card a home and a chance to actually shine. Basically, if you don't know what this guy does, he is a 2/3 that can actually attach 2 Rested Dawn to himself for free every single turn. Obviously making it a 5k, so now you can swing with it. But the good thing about that in Dragon, right, we can always play on curve and then use this guy to utilize our leader effect and those 2 Rested Dawn every single turn. A lot of the times, based on the matchup, if they can't easily remove it, you might even just want to leave this thing on board just to, you know, recycle leader effect. You know, unless you would rather go aggro and, like, say, against a 4-life leader that you know you need to rush down. But yeah, this card is really, really good, and I think definitely is your best play going second on your turn 1, right? Because you do this into any of your 4 drops, it is always very, very strong. Next up here, we are running the Revo package, since that is pretty much what this leader was printed for. Right, you want to attach to Dawn, which means all of your 4-cost 5Ks are going to boost themselves up to 7 with 2 Dawn, and that is what all their effects rely on. So, you know, that's what this leader was made in mind with, and that is what we are utilizing it for as well. So, obviously, with that being said, we are running 4 of Bello Betty Searcher. As I just said, you need to run the Revolutionaries, so obviously we need to run the 1-cost Searcher. And with that, obviously, we need to run the 4 of Revo Searchable 2K Koala. Also just a really good card in herself, right? 3K body is not bad, especially when you can move around 2 Rested Dawn, turn into a 5K swinger, as well as the fact that the minus 3K for 2 on play is honestly really solid, you know? It's no Gordon minus 3K for 1 Dawn, but hey, it is still very strong and a flexible, searchable card in this deck. Next up here, probably our best 4-drop. By no one's surprise, it is going to be 4 of Karasu. This card is absolutely cracked. The on-play is online in this deck, as your leader is a Revolutionary. So minusing 1k on that turn you play it. Say you had a Luffy on board your first turn, you play Karasu, we can now go 5k twice. Very, very strong. And then obviously down future turns, if you get multiple Karasus, you are just going uber aggro and your opponent is going to have a really rough time. Next up here, probably our second best 4-cost is going to be 4-drop Emporio Ivankov. This card is definitely your best card you want to get out on 4 Dawn if you got a Luffy on 2 Dawn, because that means you can use this guy's effect after playing Ivankov, move them over to Ivankov, and then play out something like a Karasu or any other 4-drop Revolutionaries that we are deciding to run. Really, really strong card that can get you some crazy momentum swings on as little as 4 Dawn. So really, really insane card, and also a repeatable effect throughout the game, right? So even if you did that play with Karasu on 4 Dawn, if you have another one in hand, you can literally do that on the next turn as well. So really, really cracked card and allows for some really mean turns for sure. Next up here, running 4 of Lindbergh. This one is kind of just a necessity. We need enough targets for this Ivankov and our other Ivankov we're going to go over later. And this is just pretty much one of the better ones. It is not amazing. It's probably one of our weakest 4 costs, I would say. But the 1 attacking effect does come in handy a lot, especially if you say want to play out a Koala. You know, now we're KOing a 6K. But pretty much just playing it for the fact that it is a 4/5 revolutionary. Also, not to mention, playing it off trigger sometimes is going to give a surprise lethal that your opponent was not expecting. Next up here, our last 4 cost that we're running is going to be 2 of Banish Inazuma. This guy's very, very threatening. I think Banish might be the best keyword in the game. So having Banish in a deck like this, where you're already trying to chip cards out of your opponent's hand with multiple swings, now makes this like a million times more threatening, right? Swinging 7K Banish into a 4K leader from Karasu is going to be absolutely criminal. This card is correct. Only running it as a 2 of, just because against a lot of the good decks, this is really dying before it does anything. So cards that get immediate value like these 2, Karasu and Ivankov, are usually better. But next up here, getting into the rest of our Revo stuff, we have 4 of 5-drop Emporio Ivankov. So this guy is kind of like a pseudo of the 4 cost because it is bringing out a 4 cost revolutionary, same as this one. However, this one is obviously a bit more luck-based because it relies on your top 3 cards, I'm pretty sure. Yep, look at the top 3 cards of your deck. Which means if those top 3 cards are not a 4-drop revolutionary, or even maybe not even a revolutionary at all, you know, if worst comes to worst, this card can feel really bad. But if you do see the perfect card combo, like if you were going first, you already played your Luffy down, you play this down on 5 Dawn. So you see Ivankov off the effect, you can play a free Ivankov on the board, and then Luffy can transfer those 2 Dawn from himself to Ivankov. Ivankov plays a Karasu from hand. And on our 5 Dawn turn, we just developed a 6K, a 5K, and another 5K in the same turn. So this is what I'm saying when this deck has some absolutely insane turns, a lot of the times enabled by the 2-drop Monkey D. Luffy. But yeah, this deck could go turbo. It is definitely a little bit reliant on seeing that in some matchups, but when you do see it, it is very, very fun. Next up here, we have our biggest card in the deck is going to be 4 of Monkey D. Dragon. No surprises here. This is literally the same as the leader. He was printed with this leader in mind, since you can convert his 2 Rested Dawn on play into whatever character or leader you want, and then obviously do leader effect from there onto whatever you want, right? So just our only large character on the board, making a card in the deck that is actually not very easy to remove, unlike the rest of our 4 costs. So really, really threatening. Also a rush card as well, which is very, very strong. Next up here, getting into our 2Ks, we have 4 of Makino. So right now, we only have the Bella Betty that we are showing right now, but we do have another 1-drop to run. Just going to give us a kind of surprise go for game option. A 1 for 3K worth of power is very strong on a 2K. So if they're just leaving your Bella Betty on board thinking they, you know, have no chance of dying, you can surprise KO them with this Makino. It is very, very threatening. And then getting into our other threatening 2Ks, we have 2 of the OP01 Sanji. This card is great because it actually does work with your leader effect. It attaches 2 Rested Dawn to itself, very similar to the 2-drop Luffy, which means you can pair that with your leader effect, right? Sending it to a Karasu or whatever else that you need, while it buffs itself by 2K. So you're getting 2 7K swings that turn for the price of 1 life. But obviously, we are aggro, so we're going to try our best to take their life before we lose all of ours. That is the plan, at least, and this guy definitely helps in certain situations, especially against matchups such as an L that are going to try to starve you out. So getting into the rest of our cards here, we have 2 of Nico Robin, 1-drop. This card is literally just for Rebecca in black, right? Blockers are a problem. There's no doubt about that. You can only have so many swingers, especially when you're playing against a black deck who is removing a lot of them. So if they're removing stuff while developing blockers, it's really hard to reach their leader, right? So this card is perfect. One drop, I'm spending 1 Dawn and getting ready your whole 4-cost blocker, Rebecca in particular. And then obviously with a Koala combined, this could get rid of like a 4K Doffy in blue or something like that, but that usually doesn't happen. Pretty much just for the Rebecca. Now let's get into our rush cards. We have 4 of the best rush card in the game. Kid and Killer. This card is insane. Everybody knows that by now. Best card to go for game if you need one more attack. This guy is an absolute menace in a rush deck such as this one, and I don't really think there is much more to talk about. Then the last 2 rush cards here, we have 2 of 5-drop Monkey D. Luffy. So this card may seem a little bit weird, kind of a slower rush card, right? It's only a 5/6 compared to, you know, a 4/7 on Kid and Killer. However, this is going to be pretty much the only checkmate card in our deck, right? If we ever get our opponent to 0 life, which with this deck is not too hard, this can be a checkmate, right? If they only have X amount of cards in hand, this is a complete unblockable attack that your opponent is just not going to be able to deal with. You know, along with the fact that we can literally, if we have no cards on board, attach 2 to leader, swing 7, spin this for Luffy, and then attach those right back to Luffy, rest on Luffy, right? It's like we got a free 7K swing as well as all done on Luffy, 11K swing. So very, very strong card and the best one for going for game when blockers are up. And last but not least, we have 2 of Bad Manners Kick Course, our only event in the deck. Pretty much just extra counter here. We only have 10 2Ks, which is, you could say, a little bit on the lower side. But if you look at our bricks, we actually have 8, 12, and 16 bricks, which is a bit much. We actually have 6, 10, 14 bricks, which is a bit much. It's, you know, I've seen decks with worse ratios, but this is pretty much just a counter card. You can run this or Rad Beam. Obviously with Rad Beam, you're going to have to leave 1 Dawn up, which you don't really like to do, especially when you're trying to use all your Dawn to attack leader. So just the fact that we have a 0-cost event that is giving us counter and allowing us to utilize all of our Dawn on our attacking turn is really good in this deck. So that is going to be the deck list. Shout out to Dimitri for playing this deck this week. He unfortunately ended up only going 1 and 2, a bit of a rough matchup in game in a couple of games that you're going to see, but some fun games nonetheless. So let's go ahead and get right into those. And getting into our first game here, we're going to be going against a purple Luffy, going first for him and second for us, and it looks like we actually are going to get our perfect start, which is going to be that 2-drop Luffy on turn 1. Luffy is going to use leader effect on 3 Dawn, which he usually does, and do a Bong Clay, ramping twice in 1 turn and swinging 6. So a very scary start for our opponent. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But we do have the Karasu going down. Not as good as Ivankov into Karasu, but, you know, still very, very strong. We are going to go ahead and swing a 5K into his 4K leader. This does require a 2K, and we have another 5K swing coming from leader right after the fact. So we do see that he has the 2K X-Rake in hand, but other than that, it does not look like our opponent has any 2K. So he's going to take the second hit there and probably going to deter him from using leader effect once again. However, since he ramped twice, he's already at 7 Dawns, so he does not need to use leader effect to drop this poly this turn. So he's probably going to go for that. Going to go for the poly, popping the Karasu, and then ramping himself 1 Dawn. He'll go 3K into 3K Luffy right now. I'm pretty sure Bon Clay is not a straight character, but I could be wrong. That might have been a misplay from a Dragon here. Now swinging 6K into lead, though, we do give him a 2K counter, going to 6 Dawn this turn. So 6 Dawn is honestly a pretty good stat line, or a pretty good amount of Dawn for us, since we can play 4-drop and attach 2 if we need to for one of its effects. So we're going to just go 5 into Bon Clay, play another 2-drop Luffy into another Karasu. So pretty solid turn for us. We do develop board once again. However, this is a pretty removable board, especially if he has something like a 9-drop Kaido. And he does look like he has a king in hand as well if he wants to remove this Karasu right now. So, oh no, he actually decides to drop down 2 Magellans. putting us back down 2 Dawn. So we will be at 6 Dawn once again next turn. You're going to make it a lot harder to put on the pressure as he is going to swing 5 and a 6, as we will counter out of the 6 with a 2k out of hand. Now at 6 Dawn, I imagine we will probably just use all of that attached to Luffy and then swing with the rest. But no, looks like we're going to... oh no, we will not decide to attach that. Gonna think about what to do here. I think I saw an Inazuma in hand, but other than that, I don't know if we can actually utilize the rest of our Dons. So we'll go 7k lead, putting the leader down to a 4k. So he's definitely gonna decide to take that one. And then from there, we will actually, gonna play the Ivankov. Using Luffy's effect to use those 2 rested Dons, swinging 5 at 4. He does get a 2k and decide to use it. 5k swing from lead uses another 2k. As we will decide to use leader effect onto Ivankov, bringing out an Inazuma here. So very, very threatening board. If he does have a 9-drop Kaido here, we're probably in a little bit of a rough spot. But other than that, at the very least, we're going to hope that Ivankov and Inazuma can stick to the board this turn, and we can put a lot of pressure on them next turn. So he's actually going to finally drop that king, popping the Karasu as it is the biggest threat. If I were him, I definitely would have swung into it first, as we don't really have that many cards in hand, and then probably pop the Inazuma instead. But it looks like Luffy player going to choose to just kind of play it a little bit slower, not going to go as aggressive in the leader maybe. Going to go 6k into lead. I don't think we have any 2ks in hand there, so we actually have to take that. I'm going to give him the 2k for the Makino there as he swings 5 once again here. I think that is only 2 cards in hand, so definitely thinking about whether we want to counter out of this one. Actually, 3 cards in hand. I would counter out here. It's a bit too risky to go down to 1 already, especially with this insane board our opponent has, and paired with the fact we have no removal. But I think we pretty much just have to go for game next turn regardless. So going to counter out of that one. I probably would have taken it just to give ourselves more options. But our opponent's actually going to take a life with leader effect and drop a queen. So kind of like we gained a life and took a life in the same turn by playing a queen and cycling out the hand of counter. So that was probably better than just leaving it at 2 life because he got better counters and a block around board. But at this point, it is going to be a situation where we just need to go for it. Our opponent has a decent amount of cards in hand, but there is just absolutely no way we're surviving next turn. So we do need a rusher, which it looks like we do. I think I just saw a dragon in hand. But the question is, do we decide to use it? We do not have a Karasu, so this is going to be a bit more difficult. We'll start it off with a 5k lead. That's just going to be an easy 1k. And with that, I think this game is pretty much a wrap, as he can take a hit, block a hit, and then probably counter out of the last hit. So we're going to go 7k as he gives a 2 and a 1, still with a 0 cost event in hand, so this is going to be very difficult to actually pull this one through. Going 6k to lead here. I think, you always want to counter out of that, as there is a chance we drop the 5-drop Luffy and make it unblockable. Only with, we don't even decide to use leader effect here, and we're just going to actually swing 6 at Polly. And use leader effect to actually bring out a Bello Betty with our Ivankov effect. Trying to find any counter that we possibly can. If that was a 2k Koala, that would have been pretty nice. But honestly, I don't really think there's any amount of cards that 2 cards in hand could save us at this point in time. So that's going to be a 7k to lead, followed by another 7k to lead. And with 10 down remaining, there's just absolutely no way we're winning this one. So unfortunately, a bit of a rough first match to go around. Luffy pretty much saw like the best curve you want to see in this matchup, because you don't want to use leader effect too much, so that bonk play early I think was pretty crucial, and the double Magellan definitely screwed us. And getting into our second match here, looks like we're going against a blue Doffy. Fortunately, he is going second, so not getting the best curve for Doffy. Dragon, I think, likes second a little bit more, but first isn't bad, especially when you're an aggressive deck that wants to swing more. So attacking earlier is always, not going to be as bad, but Doffy going to get the Perona on turn 1 here, which is obviously never what we want to see. Our residential Doffy player on the left here pretty much exclusively plays this deck, so I don't think I've ever seen him not draw Perona on turn 1, so the deck is definitely going to be respecting our boy here. So we're going to be playing Bello Betty, searching out that koala, and then swing 7 he decides to take, and of course getting the first, the best first swing you can ever get, which is Jinbei into Edward Weevil. We're going to decide to take that, as that is an 8k swing. No reason to counter out 8k on the first life. So now on 5 Dawn, going to think about this for a second, but we're definitely going to probably drop down this Karasu, which we do. Most likely, I would guess minusing the leader or the Jinbei. I'm pretty sure we're minusing the Jinbei here, swinging 6 into 4. And then Doffy player going to choose to counter out of that, which I think is the correct answer. You probably could have not countered out and, played a little bit more defensive, save your counter for when you need to counter out a life. But going to choose to swing 5 and 6 at lead here, we'll actually choose to use the trigger from the Bad Manners Kick Course here, which brings the leader down by 3k, I'm almost positive. So he's going to need to attach 3 Dawn here if he actually wants to hurt our leader. Pretty solid trigger for us here, but looks like he's still going to just decide to use leader effect, which we do not need to counter out of, as he is at a 4k after attaching 2 Dawn, playing out a 6k Moria and a 3-drop Doflamingo. So completely flooding board here, another 6k, which is always going to be hard to deal with, and dropping a blocker as well if we ever wanted to actually attack into one of these cards. So we're going to put 2 on Karasu here. Do the same thing, most likely going into probably the Weevil, if I had to guess, Weevil or the Moria. And he is going to choose to block that. So definitely going to probably utilize leader effect this turn if we can. We'll drop a Bello Betty to start it off. Looks like we get another 2k Koala into hand here. And with 4 Dawn remaining, if we have something like an Ivankov, that could be a pretty solid pivot for us. But looks like we're going to go 5k into the 5k Weevil. He's actually going to counter out 1k with that. Maybe would have been better to go into leader or something like that, not sure. But we do get the Ivankov, moving over those 2 Dawn with leader effect and playing out a Koala from hand, bringing down Weevil all the way down to, I think that is 2k, so we can swing 2k into 2k, and he is going to give us another 1k counter. So bit of an interesting turn here, trying to remove that Weevil. We probably wanted to drop Bello Betty, or not Bello Betty, but Koala first to ensure we get that Weevil. I get getting cards out of hand is good, but now with all these cards staying on board, we're just getting aggro down and our board is getting removed. So definitely in a rough spot as he swings 7 once again here, and we are forced to take. Going to go 8 as well with leader effect in tow, swinging 7 and dropping another, most likely, really strong body, and it's another Weevil. That is going to be really hard to deal with. So the thing with Weevils, right, usually when you use Doffy effect and you're protecting your characters, you're not going to have a whole lot of cards in hand. Weevil lets you draw a card, which means you'll keep up with cards in hand while dropping a 6k. It's just very, very strong. So we're going to try to deal with this, go 2k into the Perona as we decide to go 7k most likely into the Jinbei, if I had to guess. Going to give that. And then deciding to use leader effect off of that as well. Bring Ivankov up to 8 with the 1 more attached on, going 8 into the Weevil. Another 9 into the Weevil from the Dragon. And going to pass back to our opponent here, now on 10 Dawn. So with not many cards in hand, honestly, Doffy could probably just kind of safely go for game here. I don't think he's really in a spot where he's afraid of dying, but looks like going to go the safe route here. Going to swing into the Ivankov and a double into life. That is a double immediate take, which pretty much just means, yeah, you could have just probably won there, but maybe better to play it safe. Now, locking down our Dragon with the Boa Hancock as well means we really only have a decent swing from leader this turn, which we are going to go for. 7k into Weevil. He has another 2k in hand. A lot of 2Ks this game from the Doffy player. Definitely seeing everything he needs to. So we'll go another 6k into that Moria. And then 4 Dawn up for a Lindeberg, throwing it down on the board, but with no blockers and no Dawn up for a Rad Beam if we were running one. It's just going to be all on Boa here, and yeah, that is going to be the match, unfortunately. Definitely a rough one there. Probably not a very good matchup. And getting into our final match here. Unfortunately, going 0-2 in our first 2 rounds, but we are going to be going into definitely one of our best matchups, which is going to be Purple Kaido. Definitely weak to any decks like Dragon who go very aggro, and we do get the 2-drop Luffy on 2 Dawn. So going to play the Karasu after that, bringing leader down to 4, and we will decide to go 5k into 4k. Looks like he does have 2k counters in hand, but he's going to choose to take 1 after countering out of the other. And Kaido now on 5 Dawn, going to swing a 5 into most likely our Luffy here. But thinking about it here, possibly going to be swinging into leader. No, he actually was swinging into leader, and we're going to just decide to counter out that one. If I was Kaido, I would definitely swing at that Luffy. I think it's just, I mean, it's hard to see, but it is very important for Dragon to have, right? Because you can play stuff on curve and still utilize your Dawn. So we're actually going to go with Karasu here. Putting 2 more onto Karasu again. Bringing his leader down to 3k. So we're going 7 to 3 here. You're definitely not countering out of this. So he's going to choose to block and give a 2k. I think that was a pretty smart move by him there. So we'll go 5 into 3. And then move those 2 down over to Luffy. Use leader effect, or use Luffy effect once again, going 7 into 3. This is a double 2k and a 1k if you want to get out of it. And he's going to choose to take that again, going down to 2. So really slow start here for our Kaido. He's only played a 5-drop kid, and we have swung like 15 times already at leader. This is definitely not a good matchup for our Kaido player. No doubt he should have swung into that Luffy that turn. No doubt at all. So he will go 7k most likely into Karasu if I had to guess. We're going to give him a 2 and a 1, wanting both of them on board for that juicy 3k leader next turn. No doubt about that. If he does have a king, which it looks like he does, but he decided not to use it. I would have definitely used king, popped 1 Karasu, and then swung into the other one. So he's going to go 6k into Luffy, probably just not wanting to let us do a free 2k if he swung into Karasu. And he's going to drop a Conqueror of the 3 Worlds Ragnarok, popping 1 of our Karasus. Definitely think king would have been a bit more of a Dawn efficient play there, and I think he actually forgot to use Kid Effect from that Dawn -1 as well. So bit of a rough turn here. We're going to go 7k at leader, bringing leader down to 4. This requires double 2k, but he actually only has 1 2k, so that's going to be 2 2 and a 1, or 2 and 2 1s. Which now lets us know that our opponent does not have any 2Ks in hand. So honestly, we can swing really awkward numbers, but we're going to go 7. With that many cards in hand, you would have to give us, I think, every card out of your hand if everyone was a 2K. So he is going to choose to take that one, getting a 2K into his hand as we drop a Lindeberg here and go ahead and pass to our opponent. Restanding the kid, definitely not going to want to attack with that one again, which means he's going to have to attack into leader into this Karasu here to get rid of it, and then hopefully play the king to get rid of the Lindbergh. That's what I would do at least. Obviously, you're open to rushers at that point. But yeah, he is going to drop the king, pop the Lindbergh, get that Dawn back with Kid. Rest on leader, AK into Karasu. Yeah, great play there. That is exactly what I would have done. But we are now on 10 Dawn, and we do have cards like Luffy and Dragon that can get, they can put a lot of pressure on. Luffy himself getting around blockers. So we're going to go 7 lead. He's going to give a 2 and a 1 as we just dropped the double Lindbergh, putting him in a position where you pretty much need to do something about this board or you're just going to die. And judging by the swings here, I'm definitely seeing a 10 cost Kaido in our future. So especially after we're swinging with the blocker here, if you know a 10 cost Kaido is coming, we definitely want to not take this since there's going to be a 12k, but we're actually going to choose to take that. And at 10 cost Kaido here, removing everything off the board, putting our opponent down to 4 Dawn. However, with 3 cards in hand, if we do have a Kid and Killer, this is pretty much a wrap, especially with the fact that we can attach Arrested Dawn on the Kid and Killer after swinging with our leader. So I think that's what we're going to do here. We will go most likely 5 on leader, or possibly 4. Looks like that is going to be 4 or 5, most likely 4. Definitely thinking about it for a second here, but I'm pretty sure there's no doubt we play Kid and Killer out of hand if we do have it. So yeah, that is going to be a 9k leader, no blocker, and 3 cards in hand. There is the Kid and Killer, 2 Rested Dawn, and 2 left over. That is going to be the game here. So obviously a few misplays from our opponent. Maybe even a few misplays from us, but that matchup is by no means difficult. I think Kaido might be one of the easiest matchups for this deck, as it is just way too slow in the face of aggro. And that is going to be the video, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. Dragon was definitely a lot of fun this week. He is a very interesting leader who, you know, I think is a bit high roll dependent. You do really want to see your Ivankovs into Karasus and your Luffys on curve. They help the deck out a lot. You're still going to struggle with decks like, you know, Black Lucci, who's just going to remove anything and everything that you play. You can go a bit, you know, a bit aggro and kind of, you know, force them to play defensive and possibly not be able to remove your guys. But, you know, that depends on the match, and I think it's definitely not in your favor. So Dragon as a deck, probably not in a great spot in the meta either. He is by no means bad, but I don't think he's really there, you know, breaching even tier 2. He's probably sitting, you know, somewhere in tier 3, hanging out. Definitely going to be good against the off-meta leaders, but against the good stuff, don't really think he has a place, unfortunately. But definitely a fun leader to play and to watch. Thank you again to Dimitri for playing this deck for me and recording the videos for the games this week. Really do appreciate that. But if you are looking at the poll going into next week, it is going to be a toss-up between a few leaders, such as red-purple Luffy, red-blue Vivi, and maybe possibly blue-yellow Ace. But if you do want to see any of those leaders next week, I will definitely be piloting one of them, since I do play all 3 of them. Very, very fun decks, and all strong in their own right. Definitely fun to run those next week and make the video on that. So if you guys do enjoy these types of videos and you do want to stay updated, please do like and subscribe to the channel. It does mean a lot. But with that being said, this has been Jim with OPTCG. You guys have a great day, and I'm going to head out of here. Peace.